All right, let's get to work, guys. Does anyone has a question from yesterday or the day before? Everybody's good. We're ready to start. We're ready to start rolling tonight. Everybody's good? Okay, no questions. That's a good thing. All right, so let's go back to the last subject that we started actually yesterday, which was appraisals, right? So let's look at that right now. Okay, so we are almost in the middle of the class. Tomorrow we're going to have more days, less days left to go. Tomorrow. All right, so let's go back to evaluations right here. Let me bring you guys over here with me. Beautiful. Okay, guys. All right, so yesterday we were talking about valuations. Valuations come from value, right? And we started saying that the valuations could be affected by what I refer to the GEPS, the GEPS. And the G stands for geographical location, E stands for economic impacts, P stands for political impacts, and the S stands for the social changes that can happen in a certain environment, certain population, and that kind of stuff. So then we went to talk about the value characteristics of that can also affect the valuation, the value of a property. We spoke about the demand, the utility, the scarcity, and the transferability of the particular property. Okay, when spoke about market value, the difference between something, the value of something and the price of something when it comes to a property, how the market refers to it. Okay, we ended up talking about the appraisals, who they are and what they do. And we, at the very end of class yesterday, we were talking about the kind of market analysis that you guys are going to be doing. So someone comes to Johnny and says, Johnny, listen, I have a house, but I'm not sure about how much it's worth or how much I should put it in the market for. So Johnny's going to wonder, how do I do that? So that's exactly what we're going to continue doing, finding out today. So usually people comes to you as an agent. They understand that you're a real estate professional, that you can guide them, that you can give them advice on how much they should put their property out in the market for. Therefore, you need to have knowledge of this type of analysis. We started talking yesterday. We mentioned that there are three types of methods that are used for analyzing the value of a particular property. We mentioned sales comparison, the cost approach, and the income approach. Okay, we're going to be talking about all three of them tonight. Yesterday, we started talking about the first one, the sales approach, which is the one that is commonly used for residential properties. Because as you know, there is more one family residentials than everything else. I mean, there's more one family than two families, than four families, three families, buildings. There's more single houses than everything other, any other type of property in the market of the United States and probably around the world, right? Unless you are uh, in jungle somewhere, right? So yesterday we were talking about how do we use the sales comparison method, okay? And we mentioned something very important, which is how we end up with a base. Our base is our client's property, our client's house in this case. That's what we call our base. We're gonna use our base and we're gonna be comparing it to other properties that have been sold recently in the market of the area. You know, of course, if you live in Queens, and I'm gonna be comparing my, I'm not going to be taking comparisons from properties that are in New Jersey, you know, or properties that are in Manhattan, because then we have to take under account the one of the value characteristics when we're talking about the how the geographical location can affect the value of a property. So when it comes to this kind of approach, the sales comparison approach, we need to find properties that have been sold recently and around the area, hopefully in the same neighborhood, right? So then we take three properties, minimum of three properties, and we start adjusting them. Adjusting means that we try to bring them up or down to make them as similar as the base, as our client's property. We take a minimum of three, and then we adjust the price based on if they have more or less of what we have, and then we make a we take the average price of all those three properties. Okay, and then that's the price that we're going to be giving as an advice to our client. So explaining to you yesterday, usually right now you have all these programs, right, that allow you to do this in a few minutes. Okay, so that's something that you shouldn't have to worry about much. So let's look at something more in terms of numbers. We have here direct sales comparison approach, also known as market data approach. Okay, this is the kind of this is the same one that we were looking at before, but we have another example. We have the subject property is a single family house with garage, two bedrooms and two bathrooms, 2,200 square feet and 25 years old. Okay, this is what we have. Now look at the comparable properties and what takes on the consideration. It takes, we're gonna be looking properties that has been recently sold nearby that have a mini, and we're gonna be using a minimum of three similar properties. By similar, we refer to properties that are around the same square footage, that have more or less the same type of bedrooms, bathrooms, more or less the same age, kind of close, not one that is 100 years old compared to the other one, and the type of a structure. So as you can see here, the number one sold for 230, the two 250, and the third one's sold for 235. They also have different square footage. So there is a difference between five, I see like 350 and 50 square feet of difference between a few of them. Okay, then I see a difference in years. But as you can see, they're kind of similar, right? So we can use them, and then we're gonna be adjusting them. Okay, remember, adjusting is what we do when we try to subtract or add depending on the how similar the comparison is to our base. Okay, uh, that's what we call the principle of contribution, which is where the appraisal determines the feature, what features add or subtract value. Remember yesterday we were adding garage on one side and we were taking a garage in the other. Okay, so as you can see here, we have a starting price of 215,000. Then we have 215,000 because one took a bedroom off of 20,000, and then on the other side there was a garage added. So you can see you basically take input depending on the comparisons that you have. Okay, and then the average of all three is what's going to give you the type of advice that you're going to give to your client in terms of pricing. Okay. All right. So that was the sales comparison approach for residential properties up to 4 dwelling units. So you can also use it for a 4-bedroom, a 4-family. Okay. This is the other one, the second method that we're going to be looking into. It's called the cost approach. Now, cost, I remember at the beginning of this subject, we were talking about that cost is what it takes someone in terms of resources to build something, right? So if I tell you the price of this cell phone is not the same as the cost of it, maybe this cell phone, the price is $700, but the cost might be $30. You know, they was built in China, very cheap labor. So they probably, the cost of it is very small compared to the actual price. And this is, so in this case, the method evaluates properties based on their cost. Why? Because these are very special situations, very special properties. Now, imagine if I ask you, Johnny, listen, I have a cemetery that belonged to my family for years, all right? And we want to sell it. I know it's a little bit of a bad example, but let's say we want to sell a cemetery. We don't want to handle it anymore. We don't want to have to deal with it. So how do you use comparables? How do you go out there and say, okay, don't worry, I'm going to look for recent sales of cemeteries? You know, there's no such a thing. It's a very strange situation. Same thing with a church, for example, or a school, or these are the kind of properties that is what we call them a special use property. Therefore, we cannot use the sales comparison method because finding comparison cells, recent cell, it's very, very, very hard. Okay. So therefore, what we do is that we use this approach, and this is based on this formula that you're seeing below. So the first of all, let me just go here so you guys can see a little bit better. The cost approach is used to value the specialty properties such as schools, places of worship, government buildings, and new constructions. Okay. The cost approach is usually used when there is a lack of comparable sales and the subject property does not produce any income. And it uses as an example an existing high school. So the first thing that you need to get is the replacement cost. So replacement cost, it refers to how much would it cost to build that particular property with that particular use. So you get someone, let's say a contractor or an architect or developer, and asking, okay, if you look at this school, how much you think it will, it will take to build it, in today's market? And he will tell you, well, let's say we're in Manhattan, and the square footage of building something in Manhattan is, as it says here, $36 per square feet. So it's okay. So $36. The square footage of the whole building is 45,000. So you multiply 45,000 square feet by $36, and it comes up to $1,631 with 150, and that's your replacement cost. So that's what a developer will tell you, that he will charge an average. He will charge for building a similar product, a similar property, just the way he's looking at it right now. So that's what we call the replacement cost in this kind of method. Okay. So then we take the replacement cost and we take the depreciation. So as many of you know, things either appreciate or depreciate. When they depreciate, they lose value. Okay. We usually say that all real estate, everything but land. Okay. Land is the only one that never loses value, but any kind of building or property in general, it loses value throughout the time. So that's what we call depreciation. So based on the appraisal research, the depreciation of the existing building equals to 346,250. So let's say the appraisal in this situation use different methods to figure out how much depreciation this building has accrued over the years. Okay, that's not something that you guys have to even think about, because as you can see, they are giving us the information. The other thing is that this formula usually never comes on the exam. They just want you to know certain things, like what is this method used for. Okay, but just for your general knowledge, remember that replacement cost minus depreciation in this case is giving us a price of $1,285,000. Okay, to add to that, we're going to add the value of the land. Okay, and the value of the land, we can certainly use a sales comparison approach to determine how much would it sell. Like if you didn't have a building there, how much that will cost just to buy the piece of land. And as you can see, you usually see older buildings around the area. that have sold recently, or other lands, raw lands that have sold recently. So you can use the source comparison approach only to figure out how much the land will cost, just for this formula. So now we have the replacement cost, we have depreciation, and we have the value of the land. So in this case, the value of the land is 282,000. Therefore, we add the value of the land to the 1,285,000, and we have an appraised value of $1,567. I mean, $57,000. Okay. So this is the cost approach. From here, I want you guys to remember that this is used for specialty properties. Okay, for specialty properties, not for residential properties, only for, as you can see here, schools, places of worship, government buildings, and new constructions, things that it's really hard for you to figure out through a sales comparison. Okay, and of course, when there is no income. Now, what happens when there is income? Well, before we go there, uh, let's look into a few concepts that are important to remember. Going back to the depreciation that I mentioned before. So we have things that, some of the items that account for the depreciation of the building. We can mention the physical deterioration, which means the way how the building is looking on the outside, uh, how a building is losing its color, it's cracking in the outside. You see the foundation, the building, going sideways like the Tower of Pisa. All that stuff, it's part of the physical deterioration of the building, and that can depreciate the building. Okay. The functional obsolescence refers to function, right? So obsolescence means something that is obsolete, therefore it's not used anymore. So you think about old houses which have certain features that are not really used anymore. So you go and you buy this old house, and you see that they have like um, an old tank under the backyard with a big pipe coming out, but they don't use that anymore because they already installed a gas system for the heating. So you still have that there, but it has functional obsolescence because it's not used anymore. But the fact that you have that in the backyard, somehow it can hurt to the valuation, because maybe people is concerned about if the tank it's leaking oil, if it has oil leak somewhere, if the tank it's destroyed or something, you have to take it out of the land. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that depreciates the property. External obsolescence, it means to, external is something on the outside. It doesn't refer to the property itself, but it talks about the stuff, the situations, around the property that can depreciate that particular product. Let's say if you have a highway around you, or you have a garbage dump, where people goes and throws the garbage there, and every once in a while there's a smell of garbage. Um, or if you live close by the water deposit of like a wastewater plant, of those kind of neighborhoods where it's always every once in a while you feel like a bad smell. And so all that situation, it it's what we call external obsolescence, because it brings down the price of a property through the desirability is the word, desirability of someone. When someone goes and see the house that is for sale, they're gonna say, "Wow, well, what's the smell? Oof, what's the smell? Oh, yeah, I don't want to live here because of the smell." So that's kind of something that brings the value of the property down. Okay, just so you guys remember, it does to it. So we spoke about self-comparison approach, and we spoke about cost approach. Now we're going to be talking to the last method, which is the income approach method. And we can look at it two ways, either capitalization rate or cap rate, and gross rent multiplier. So you guys are not only going to be working with people sorry, that wants to buy a residential house for themselves. They also, you're going to definitely be uh, in constant communication and sharing information with people that are just investors and they're looking for good opportunities in this market. And they're gonna be asking you. Let's say you go to a dinner and you meet someone to tell you, someone from San Francisco, for example, and they're visiting here. You're in a bar, and they meet you and they say, "Oh yeah, wow, you're an agent. So I'm looking for properties to invest. If you have anything, I have $10 million that I'm looking to invest in New York. So just send me whatever you have, whatever you can find." Then you have to say, "Okay, so I have to start looking. I have to start looking for properties to invest." And this is where you need to know that this method, the income approach method, because an investor is always looking for what this property can bring them. So we're going to be talking first about the capitalization rate, or what is most commonly referred as the cap rate. When you hear about cap rate, it means capitalization rate. Okay. Capitalization rate is a percentage rate used to determine the present value of a future income. Okay. The present value of a future income. So as you can see here, it's the formula. It's the income, the net income divided by the rate. It's um, is what is going to bring you the value of the property. Okay. Now, so think about something. Let's say right now, with the interest as low as they are, you can probably get, in the best case scenario, 1 point something interest in a regular checking account. Okay. Uh, the stock market says that for the last 30 years, they have been giving you back around 6 to 7%. With all the ups and downs, you always end up multiplying your money by 7% every year. So when an investor wants to put his money in an investment, they always look at the capitalization rate, because it's what they're gonna get as a return on their money. So if they can get 7% in the stock market, they are not looking to risk their money for something less than that. Okay. So if they're going to put a million, they prefer to put $1 million in the stock market if it's going to offer them 7% than putting $1 million in a property when it's only offering 3%, 4%. Okay. So the capitalization rate, an investor is going to tell you, well, show me what you have. What's the cap rate? When you call that guy that you met at the bar and said, "Listen, Mike, Joseph, Susanna, I have this great property. I think you're gonna love it. It's really good. I really did all my research on it, and I think you're gonna get a 9%, a nine cap rate. A nine cap rate means a 9% capitalization rate on the property. So that means that based on the money that he has to put to bet to buy the property, he's gonna get 9% back on his money. Okay, so I'm gonna see an example right here. The income capitalization approach is an appraisal method in which the value of a property is derived by applying a market capitalization rate to the property. Okay, the income capitalization approach is used to value commercial properties, because it's based on the income that the property can supply. And we can apply it to office buildings, multifamily buildings with 5 units and more. Okay, 5 units and more, shopping centers, and mixed use buildings. Okay, mixed use building. So we have an example here that we're gonna be looking at. The subject property is a Class A office building. Class A is like the best you can find in terms of office building, like top of the line, brand new building, all technology all around, all smart functionality around the building, top of the line. Okay, so we have this example of this Class A office building. Now we have what we call the net operating income. Okay, the net operating income means the what you get, okay, after you take all the expenses. So if you have let's say this great building has 20 office space, you have like big attorney offices, big law firms, big doctors, accountants, all the most famous businesses you can find, and they all pay, I say, $5,000 a month. So $5,000 a month, you multiply it by 20, then you deduct all the expenses that you have as owner of the building. Okay, you take all the expenses, and that's what's going to give you the net operating income. So all the rents that you collect every month, that's what we call effective gross income. All the rents that you collect before the expenses. Now the net operating income is what you get after you deduct all your expenses: electricity, heating, air conditioner, maintenance of the building, taxes, all that stuff. So you take the income minus the expenses, and that gives you what we call the NOI, or net operating income. Okay. In this case, the net operating income is $150,000. So to determine the capitalization rate, uh, we have to divide the wait. Okay, I'm sorry. So in this case, what we're trying to find out is the value, right? How much should an investor put out in terms of money? So in this case, we're getting the cap rate. So let's say the investor says, "Oh, I'm fine getting 6% on this particular building because it's a great building. I think in 10 years it's gonna be, the value is gonna double. So I'm fine getting 6%." So now you have the NOI and you have the rate, you have the cap rate, 6%. So we looked at the formula before and we said the income, the NOI divided by the rate is going to give you the value. Now, this is the value that you're going to be telling your investor that you think this property is worth. Remember that you are the one suggesting this building. So it's going to be the one telling you or asking you, how much do you think I should offer for it? So you say, well, the owner told me that he's making $150,000 a year net. So you told me you want to make around 6% cap rate. So therefore, you should make an offer of the 2.5, 2.5 million, because that's what this method comes. That's what it shows. Okay. So this is what we call cap rate. Now, as you guys remember from your math class, we are having right now, when you divide the NOI between the rate, you get the value. But in other circumstances, you're going to get, let's say, the income, okay, divided by the value of the property in order to get the cap rate. Okay. So sometimes, let's say a person is selling a building. In this case, you are just figuring out how much you should offer for the building. But if someone says, "Oh, I'm selling a building for $2 million," okay, and you ask, "Okay, so how much? What's your NOI? What's your net operating income?" I say, "Well, with all the rents and everything else, right now, I am my NOI is $100,000." So you need to tell your investor, "Well, this person is selling this building with a cap rate of this much." So you need to figure out by dividing the income minus between the cap rate. I mean the value. I'm sorry. Or what? Remember, the value can be what the owner is trying to sell the building for. Okay. So at that point, you can tell your investor, "Yeah, I found this building. The owner is looking to get this, but it's only a cap rate of 5%. Since you want 6, then we need to play with the numbers, offer them a lower amount." Okay. So that's exactly how the cap rate works. Now, following on the income method, there is another type of income approach, which is called the gross rent multiplier. And it's used for appraising a residential properties between 1 and 4 units. Okay. Takes under consideration the rents to determine profitability not expenses. So this one is similar to the income capitalization rate, to the cap rate. The only difference is that is for residential properties between 1 and 4 units, which provide you with income. It's not like a family house where it's a family living there and they don't provide any income. They don't get any income from the property because they are the one living there. But if you have a one family that it's like an extra house that you have, an apartment where you get an income, then this gross rent multiplier can be used. However, this one doesn't get used too much because it doesn't give you an exact um, value. What it does is it takes an amount based on what people is paying in rent, but it's not taking under consideration the expenses of the property. So imagine if you have a property that is bringing you $4,000 a month in rents, but you have to spend $3,000 a month in expenses. So you're only making $1,000 a month on that property. So in the long term, it doesn't make any sense. So since it doesn't take, it's a gross rent, as it says, it's gross, it's not net. Therefore, it doesn't take expenses on their accountant. So it's only used in cases where there is no way of using comparisons for it, like the sales comparison. Let's say there is a 4 units building in a total residential area where there are no buildings, more buildings like that, and you don't have a way of using the sales comparison method. Okay. And as you can see, we cannot use the NOI because it's used specifically for buildings, multifamily buildings with more than 5 units. Okay. All right. So let's go to, um, so we sometimes, or you guys sometimes, mostly in commercial spaces, are going to be using what we call the square footage method. Is the appraisal must estimate the cost per square foot of each component, material plus labor. So we mentioned this when we were talking about the cost approach. We said that for a developer to figure out how much would it cost to build a property, he will use like a price per square foot, a construction price per square foot. So if you call um, a contractor and you tell him, listen, I want to know how much can cost to build a 2,000 square foot house. And he's going to tell you, well, we have different ways. If you want it just on the cheap side, I can build it for $50 a square foot. When he says $50 square foot, it means that you have to multiply the 2,000 per 50. Okay, and that's going to give you the total price, an estimate of the total price, and that includes materials and labor. I just use a crazy number there. All right. Concepts to remember. Okay, is the age of the building. Uh, we refer to the age of the building to the total numbers of years since its completion. So if a building was finished and it was able to use in 2000, we're in 2021, then the age of a building is 21 years. Okay, very down to earth. Another concept to remember is what we call the principle of regression. Okay, so regression brings something back, something that comes back to you. What it means is that the price of the better home in a neighborhood is lower than what it might be in a comparable neighborhood. I use these pictures down here to show that you have 4 houses that kind of look similar, small, and all that, kind of a little bit outdated, and then you have this house, the fourth house from right to left, that seem to be like a little bit more modern. It has a garage and all that. And what the principle of regression refers to in this case is, sorry, that this person spent all this money building this house in this neighborhood with all houses have a standard of how they look and all that. He spent all this money. He went over out. He wanted to build this beautiful house in this neighborhood, and now he's experimenting with, experiencing, I'm sorry, what they call the principle of regression. So the price of the better home in a neighborhood is lower than what it might be in a comparable neighborhood. Okay, so you cannot use, because if you try to do the self comparison approach with this house, it's hard because when you do the adjustment, there are not many houses out there with the garage. There are not many houses out there with the beautiful windows, with the type of roof, with all that stuff. Okay, so that's why the price goes down. And then we have the opposite. So we have what they call, wait, sorry, why this one says the same thing? Okay, so this one will be not regression, but like progression, the opposite. Uh, Let me just make sure. Okay, no, this is the principle of progression. Sorry. So the principle of progression, the price of the worst home in a neighborhood can benefit from being in a neighborhood with well-kept properties. So this is the opposite of what we saw. And it refers to the fact that, as you can see down here, I use similar example, but I put a very old ghost witch house over here that is sitting in a neighborhood that's nice. And in this case, then that old house does benefit from being in a neighborhood where everybody keeps their house nice, paints it every day, it's always maintained. Because when they do a self comparison approach, they're going to be using the value of the other properties around that to raise the value of this property that hasn't been well kept. Okay, so that's the progression. Okay. Let me see what I did here. Okay, so are we looking? Okay, we have a few minutes. We're doing good. Concepts to remember. Building economic life. Building economic life. Period of usefulness that a building has. Okay, so uh, that's determined by subtracting the cost of the building minus the depreciation. Okay, so if the building cost $1 million and now has depreciation of 200,000, then we said the building economic life it's 800,000, right? Alienation. Oh no, this is a. I'm sorry. So let me just. So this is the end of the chapter of valuation. Okay. Uh, Let me just go over something here. Okay. So then we gonna be those. I want to stop here for 5 minutes. Just if anyone has a question about this before, because I know we saw numbers, and I just want to make sure everybody is before we jump and take a few minutes to work on these. Okay, let me go with Simon first.
Hi.
Hi, I'm sorry. What's your name again?
I had a question about the when you're determining the valuation for properties of multifamily properties between 1 and 4 units.
Okay. What's the question?
So you said that we use the gross rent multiplier, but it's not the best. It's not the best way to determine because expenses are not taken into account.
Right.
So you do the standard sales. What is it called? The standard sales analysis.
The sales approach. Okay, yeah. So what happens is that most of the time, as you can see, you see on the screen, it says residential properties between 1 and 4 dwelling units. Most of the time, we're gonna be using this approach, this method, right? But what happens is sometimes we're gonna be seeing properties that you don't have much comparison around, or you have a person that is more interested on the income than the actual way how the property looks. So they want to have a knowledge more or less of what the property is going to bring. So for them, you can tell them, well, this property has 4 apartments. Each apartment is paying $1,000. Therefore, you're gonna get $4,000 a month, which is $48,000 a year, and you can make a decision based on that. That's you talking to your client, in this case, an investor. But that's only when you don't find, if you have a neighborhood that has 5 or 6 properties, like let's say Brooklyn, or
Mhm.
even Queens, where you have so many of those, you find a three family, 4 family everywhere, right? So you don't have that much headache. So you can use the self comparison approach for that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Johnny, Johnny, you can talk now. Johnny. All right. So you got, is that you wanted to ask a question, Johnny, or that was the what you wanted to ask, answer also? I mean, ask.
No, I'm good.
Okay, you good? All right. So you raise your hand. All right. All right. So we have a few minutes to uh, finish up with start what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. So let's just jump on that. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about deeds and title. And I want to start just giving you a glance of what we will be talking about. So deeds and titles. So, okay, there is a concept called alienation. I don't know, every time we talk about beings from another planet, or even now that I know that I heard that I wanted to change the name on the green card, which says resident alien. They wanted to change that to just non-citizen because it sounds kind of weird, right? An alien reminds you of the movie. About alienation, the concept, it means process of transferring ownership interest in property. So alienation is a verb and it's a process of transferring ownership, mhm, interest in the property. So when I alienate my house to Johnny, I transfer the ownership interest of my property to Johnny. I alienate. Okay. So there are ways, a few ways. Remember, we're talking about ways of transferring. We mentioned deed in the class when we were talking about non-possessory interest. We were talking about deed and device. We say the deed was the actual process of transferring property to what we usually call a title, which is a written document, or a device, which is when a person um, passed away and that person's heirs or whoever that person has on the will end up with the property. So today we're going to be talking about deed, which is one of the ways of transferring or conveying real estate. Okay, so deed can be uh, okay. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so a deed is basically what we refer to as a title. The title, it's only the actual lawful ownership of real property. Remember that we were last week or the week before, we were talking about how back in the days, in the times of the kings and queens and kingdoms and Game of Thrones, you had those titles. You were the king, you were the archduke, you were the count of Monte Cristo, you were, all those were titles. Okay. And as you did a name for yourself, maybe in battle or in a war, they gave you, the king said, okay, I'm going to give Johnny the title of an archduke. He's going to be the archduke of Astoria or of Woodside. So that means that he had the title for the land of Woodside. Okay, that was his title. So now we use title as a way, an actual lawful ownership of real property, but there is no such a thing called title. The actual written statement, the actual written document, is called a deed. Okay, it's the actual instrument that conveys a grantor's interest in real property to someone else, who we call the grantee. So here we go again with those two letters. the OR, which means to give, and the EE, which means to receive. Comes from granting, which to grant. Remember, when you have a deed, when you give a deed to someone, you grant a deed because what you're doing is transferring interest. So you grant something, something, in this case, a property, to someone else who is called the grantee. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it right here. I just wanted to get you guys started. So we will be jumping into, if you don't have any other questions, we're gonna be jumping into tonight's quiz. Second. No other questions, people. Okay, so also I saw that Simonga has her test for, was it June 6th or something like that?
June 15th.
Or June 15th, yeah. I just want you to know that we're gonna end up with the class on the 23rd. But I usually, leave the chat open. I usually keep sending questions. You're gonna have access to our, let me just go over that really quick so you guys can see what I do after, because it's not the first, it's not gonna be the last that, the stats are showing up a little bit later than, because it's because of COVID. So they are not accepting too many people in the same classroom. Therefore, it's taking a longer time. But I just wanted to go over a few things really quick. So let me just jump in here. So I know we already spoke about this website, but this is the website I created. I know it's in Spanish, but here under Licencia de Bienes Raíces, that means real estate license, there is here where you have, besides all the Spanish Yiddish, you have all the classes are here for this current class that we're doing. So you go down, you're gonna see all, I keep posting them. I post them in the chat, but I also post them here. Okay, so if someone ever wants to come and see, like just very interest to go over something, they can always come here and take some notes from here. I also post some other videos. So you guys want to do some studying, there is also
Hola amigos, ¿cómo están?
It starts in Spanish, but then everything is in English. Like the questions that I put are in English. I do speak in Spanish, of course, but I try to put the information in English so that the people, when they go to take the test, they're gonna see the questions in English. Or I want them to get familiarized. So you guys can use this also to practice. Now, this is the most important part. This is where I have the quizzes for the state exam. And there are 256 questions on this. Okay, so these are questions that are coming out on the test. These are the questions that when someone goes and take the test, they, when they're done, they call me, they say, oh, this came out. So you guys can use this to study. All right. So this is going to be available for you guys. I update this pretty often. So you guys, it's all the questions are in English, so you can, pretty much easy does it. So you guys can use this to practice. Now, I will suggest that you guys do this. You can start now. This is always available, but you are not going to have access to all the information, of course. But if you feel like you just want to start practicing, it's fine for you to start right now. Okay, so let me just go back to today's quiz. And the same thing, I mean, I'm available for you guys whenever you have a question after the class is over, and we're gonna stay in contact. All right, so let's go to today's class. So how far is that from your house, Simon? The test site.
It's about 9 miles. It's not too far.
Oh, really? Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be meeting other potential real estate agents there too in the class.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're going to be looking at valuations, which is number 8. We're up to number 8, which is valuation. Let me bring you guys here with me. Okay, so everybody's ready. I'm going to open the chat and start quiz. Okay, so we have the first question here. We went over this question earlier when we were looking at those not too cute houses in a good neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. The theory of progression indicates that the value of the worst property in a given area is. Bum, 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 bum. Remember, we spoke about the theory of progression and the theory of regression. So I have two C's. I have two C's. C, 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 C. Do I have an A? Do I have a B? Do I have a B? Do I have a D? Anyone else? C going once, C going twice. Okay, we have 3 C's. We're going with the C. Raised by the others properties in the area. Perfect. Very well. Good done. All right, so here we go. The subject property shows severe structural damage to a basement and foundation that will cost $40,000 to repair. Now, when we talk about a subject property, we refer to the property that we are looking to buy, let's say, in this case, for your client. So the subject property shows severe structural damage to a basement and foundation that will cost $40,000 to repair. This was only at about $25,000 in value. However, this will be considered. Okay, so what do I have here? I have 2 Ds. I have Simon D, Johnny D. An incurable physical deterioration. Anyone else? I have 2 Ds, 2 Ds, 2 D. I have 3 Ds. I'm going with the 3-dimensional. Very well done, guys. Okay, let's do. Appraisal Jack has been contracted to determine the value of a large apartment building for a potential investor. Which appraisal method is probably the most useful for this situation? People, read very well the question before you answer. Think about what a potential investor wants. And look at the type of property. So I have a C. Carol says C, 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 C. I have a C who has an A, who has a B, who has a D, who has an A, who has a B. Okay, I have 2 C's. I have 2 C's, 2 C's, 2 C's, 2 C's. I have an A. Simon says C. We have 3 C's. And they are saying income approach. Let's see. Correct. Perfect. Very nice. All right, so here we go. Paul is doing an appraisal for Fannie Mae. What is the minimum number of comps he needs to consider when using the sales comparison approach? Okay, I have was that a B from Simon? I have a C from Carol. Carol says C. I have a B. Johnny says C. So I have 3 and 4. So let's see. I have 2 C's. Okay, I'm going with the C with the majority. 4. Nope. The answer is B. Correct, people. 3. 3 is the minimum. All right. 3 properties. Very well done. All right. So let's go with the next one. Okay. This one, you guys are going to need paper and pen if you do. If you have, if you don't. All right. Or maybe you can do the calculation in your brain. Okay. So using appraisals, Mariel's notation, determine the final estimate of value using the cost approach. Replacement cost, 465,000. Deterioration, to 32,000. Inside value, 85,000. So you're supposed to figure out how much the final estimate of value using the cost approach. How much is the final estimate of value? We looked at this. Actually, I'm going to put it up in the screen. I'm going to give you, well, I'm going to put it up in the screen for you guys to look at the formula. And all right, so this one is actually much better. You guys can see it here. This is the formula for the cost approach. So I'm going back to the numbers so you guys can see the numbers. 465,000, 32,000, 85,000. Johnny says C. Johnny says $518,000 to Johnny. 518,000 going on once. 518,000 going on twice. Anybody else? A, B, D. I'm gonna let you guys. Okay, I have a D by Carol. Carol says D. Carol says 550,000. So I have a 518,000. I have 150,000. Anyone else? Anyone else with an A? Okay, Carol says C now. Carol says C. So now she has 518,000. Simone says C. So I have 3 C's. I have 3 C's. Let's see. Correct. Very well done, guys. C. Beautiful. You guys are great. All right, so we have another one here, guys. Very cool. Keep your pen and paper. Commercial property has a first-year gross operating income of 64,000 and expenses of 12,000. If the capitalization rate for similar properties in the same area is 8%, what is the estimate of value? Now, so I'm going to bring you guys to that formula. So if you guys remember, okay, the capitalization rate formula. Here we go. So we have NOI divided by rate. It shows you the value. So I'm going to bring you back. Okay, Carol says 650. I have a 650. Carol says C. I have a C. I have a C. 650,000 going on once. I'm going to give you guys some time to think. So I have 64,000 in NOI. I have 12,000 in expenses, and the capitalization rate for similar properties the same area is 8%. What is the estimated value? Johnny says C. I have a C. I have 2 C's. Simon says A. So I have A, B, C, and D. I have an A and I have 2 C's. Let's go with the majority, which is the C in this case. Let's see who's right. Who is right? You guys ready? Are you guys ready? Here we go. Uh-oh. Yep, 650 was the right one. Simon, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why did you think it was 416?
I made a mistake. I subtracted the operating income from the expenses and then I divided it by
the, well, you were supposed to divide it by the rate. Is that what you did?
What did I do? I don't even know what I did.
I mean, I'm asking you because I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on this. There's don't, we are humans, no worries. I
No,
just wanted to know.
Minus 12 divided by 8. was
By
five.
8%, you were supposed to divide it, which is 0.08 on your calculator. Is that how you did it?
I'm trying to figure out what I just did. Hold on one sec.
All right, figure it out. Let's go to the next one. All right, so here we have another one. Which cost approach method is most commonly used? Which cost approach method is most commonly used? I have an A from Simon. Anyone else? I have an A from Carol. I have an A. Anyone with a B, with a C, with a D? Anybody else? I don't hear you guys. Johnny, where are you? Johnny says A. So I have 3 A's. I'm going with the A. Right up. The answer is the C. Dun, 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 dun. Now remember something. This is why I ask you guys to read very well. So it's asking which cost approach. Which cost approach method? The most common value method, I will say, surveying method, is the source comparison approach, because that's the one with, we have most of the properties are first single family residential properties. But here it is saying which cost approach. Okay, the cost approach doesn't take under consideration the comparative unit method. Okay, that will be more like this, the regular sales comparison. So in this case, the square foot method. Okay, because we use it for comparing, determining the cost of a building. Remember, we were saying, oh, how much is it going to cost to build a building? All right, so that's pretty much it, guys. If anyone has a question, you can ask it now, or you can ask it tomorrow during the day. Otherwise, I will be seeing you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. Oh, you have a question, Johnny? No?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How do we print the lessons that you're sending?
How do you what? I'm sorry?
Print it.
Print the lessons that I'm sending. You mean the PDF?
Yeah, no, like the when you send in the chat,
Right.
like you sent today the direct sales comparison approach.
Right. How can you print it? Well, do you have a printer at home? Do you have a wireless print? You have a wireless printer?
Yeah.
Okay, so usually you will have the way to print it from your cell phone. Like if you open you have an iPhone or Galaxy?
I have an iPhone.
Okay, so it should give you a way of, like, within options, once you open the actual picture, it should give you an option to share, and then you should be able to share with. Have you ever tried to print something out directly from your cell phone on the printer?
Oh, I see it. I figured, when I hit share, then printer comes up.
Exactly. That's
I didn't realize you had to share.
Yeah, so that's the way to do it. Always a pleasure.
Thanks.
All right, have a great night. Yes.
Manny,
yeah.
How many questions are the actual state test?
The state one, 75.
Okay. So it takes like about an hour and a half to do the test.
Yeah, it depends on, I never tell people to rush, but they give you one and a half hour.
Okay, got it. Okay.
All right.
Good to know. Okay.
And how many you need to pass?
It's
76, right? Okay.
50,
I see why it's hard to pass.
I think it's 56 of them.
All right, easy.
Anyone else?
No, I'm good.
Right. All right, guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys tomorrow.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, good night.